I think it's now time for question period. I will continue later on. Thank you.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly will have 10 minutes. When the House returns to the debate in the future. Statements by members. The honourable member for La Pointe-de-Lille. Mr. Speaker, this week, the only unilingual francophone minister was criticized because she declined to grant an interview in English to CBC. Ministers, judges at the Supreme Court, who are unilingual Anglophones, is apparently normal, but a unilingual francophone minister raises an outcry. That's unacceptable. The Minister of Revenue stated that unilingual francophone ministers were perhaps judged more harshly than unilingual Anglophones. And that's the least we can say. I congratulate the Minister for having taken a stand, and I invite all Canadian members of Parliament who believe in social justice to support us. We have to move beyond denial. It's more than high time for members from Quebec, not just to Bloc Québécois members, to stand here proudly. I will conclude by quoting a Francophone proverb that says we have to not be indifferent, otherwise we'll simply be insignificant.
Mr. Speaker, today I'm pleased to have the opportunity to stand in the House and acknowledge April as being Oral Health Month. Oral Health Month gives us an opportunity to recognize Canada's dedicated oral health professionals, as our dentists and dental hygienists work tirelessly to keep our mouths and teeth healthy. In fact, this week is also National Dental Hygienist Week. Recently, I had a privilege of meeting with the members of the Canadian Dental Hygienists Association and learning about the numerous innovative ways that they're providing frontline services to Canadians in my riding of Brampton West and all across our country. To everyone involved with providing oral health care to Canadians, please accept my warmest thank you for all your countless contribution and wish you all a continued success during Oral Health Month. Thank you.
The honourable member for Barrie-Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, in recognition of National Volunteer Week, tomorrow the town of Innisfil is hosting their annual Community Volunteer Appreciation Barbecue. I have the honour of attending this wonderful event with Mayor Gord Walkup, Deputy Mayor Lynn Dolan, and members of Innisfil Council. This is the first year Innisfil will be awarding a Community Volunteer Award, and the recipient will be Pastor Howard Courtney on behalf of Innisfil Community Church. Pastor Courtney's leadership on numerous programs, including the Food Bank, the Clothing Depot, seniors programming, youth mentoring, and adult life groups, has been simply amazing. Volunteers in Canada devote approximately 2 billion hours annually, which is the equivalent of about 1 million full-time jobs. Volunteering has a direct impact on the lives of Canadians, whether it's mentoring children, providing health care, or supporting and giving companionship. Mr. Speaker, Pastor Courtney is well deserving of this tribute, and Innisfil is incredibly lucky to have him in the community.
The honourable member for Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured to rise in the House to recognise the life of a great individual from Charlottetown, Jacob Knockwood, who passed away earlier this week. Jake was known for hanging out on his bench in downtown Charlottetown. There, he loved to listen to his Walkman, usually decked out in some Montreal Canadiens paraphernalia. He always appreciated any mention of his beloved Habs from passers-by. Jake was an avid sportsman, bringing home countless medals in the Special Olympics as the goalie for the floor hockey team. Jake was born with a cleft lip and palate. He became a champion for the rights of people with disabilities out of necessity when he was placed in a psychiatric institution against his will. My heart was warmed to learn that Jake had his last 8 months out of hospital, living with his advocate and friend, Pat Sobey. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for letting me stand and recognize Jake and his downtown family in Charlottetown.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, this is the first opportunity I have had to rise in this House since the terrible car accident that took the life of Constable Sarah Beckett of the West Shore RCMP Detachment in the early morning hours of April the 5th. I want to thank the honourable member for Vancouver Quadra for her kind words earlier this week, but I also wanted to pay tribute as the Member of Parliament who represents the City of Langford. Constable Beckett was laid to rest with full RCMP regimental honours on Tuesday in a service that was attended by thousands. She is survived by her husband Brad and 2 sons, Lucas and Emmett, and a community fundraising effort has already surpassed $90,000 for the family and is still ongoing. Our police, women and men, put themselves in harm's way every day on the job for our safety and security. I join with all MPs in offering my heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of Constable Beckett.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, the annual commemoration of Vimy took place on April 9th. In Vimy in 1917, the regiments from across Canada conducted a battle as Canadians, and they contributed to confirming Canada's identity. We salute the bravery of the soldiers present on that day and who began and continue to build this society.
From riding of Vimy in Laval, we carry with us a constant reminder of this great Canadian victory and its everlasting impression on our heritage and place in the world. We are forever grateful and indebted to the veterans who served. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, several years ago my office joined a group of community stakeholders known then as the Safe City Oshawa Partnership. One of the projects we decided to try was called Communities with Brooms, an initiative that would bring together Oshawa's downtown community for an annual cleanup in the spring of each year. I am proud to say that next Friday, April 22nd, Oshawa will come together once again to participate in our 8th annual Community with Brooms event. Every year, this initiative sees a diverse group of community members from local schools, churches, businesses, and individuals band together to make our streets safer and cleaner. Following the cleanup, volunteers drop by my office for an appreciation barbecue. I want to thank the numerous volunteers who make both the cleanup and the barbecue happen year after year. I also want to encourage my colleagues to take Oshawa's success story back to their communities, because when we all work together, great things can happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merci beaucoup.
The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, this is National Volunteer Week, and I'm pleased to recognize the many volunteers across my riding and in our country. I stand today to congratulate and recognize the well over 1,000 volunteers that made 2 events possible in my riding recently. The Labrador Winter Games, known as the Olympics of the North, has brought together 23 communities in a spirit of sport and sharing of culture in what is dubbed as the Friendship Games. The second event, known as Kane's Quest, is the world's longest and toughest snowmobile endurance race throughout all regions of Labrador. It has gained national and international attention and participation from racers. I want to congratulate the winners, the competitors, for their cultural and innovative spirit, to their teams and all participants that helped showcase Labrador to the world and to ourselves. We may have a small population, Mr. Speaker, but we have a large geographic landmass, and we are people of large hearts as well. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Mr. Speaker, it's National Wildlife Week, and this year we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Migratory Birds Convention concluded between Canada and the United States. 100 years of protecting migratory birds and their habitat, and protection for a crucial part of our biodiversity. Each year, these birds migrate across large territories in North America, but some 70 species are at risk. The 54 National Wildlife Areas and 92 sanctuaries help Canada protect these birds within our borders, but international cooperation is required throughout the time that they are migrating.
Partners to make a difference in bird conservation and protection. In Washington, the Prime Minister and President Obama committed to developing a vision for the next century of migratory bird conservation. Together, we can give wings to wildlife conservation. Thank you.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Saturday in Leslieville Community Hall in central Alberta, I had the privilege of attending the Rocky Mountain House Agriculture Society's annual Salute Agriculture Banquet. This event celebrated the achievements of local farmers in the area. During the event, post-secondary education bursaries were given out. Ms. J.D. Vandervis from Alhambra, Alberta, in her first year of education at Red Deer College, was one of the recipients. Later on, I was speaking with J.D. about her wishes to become a teacher in her future. During the conversation, she excitedly mentioned that she had been selected as a finalist in the Miss Ponoka Rodeo Queen competition. I've just learned that she was selected. Congratulations, J.D., for becoming the 2016 Ponoka Rodeo Queen and for winning a post-secondary education bursary. Well done, young lady. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, on the snowy day of April 2nd, residents of Mississauga, Erin Mills gathered to stand united against terrorism. They voiced their sympathy for victims in terror attacks in Lahore, Peshawar, Paris, Brussels, Ankara, Baghdad, Jakarta, and the list sadly goes on. Together we condemned acts of terror and vowed to always speak out against these horrendous crimes. Allow me to thank Reverend B and Imam Salimi for their prayers and some of my amazing constituents who made this vigil happen. Thanks to Dar, Faisal, Farina, Irfan, Yasser, Saima, Brittany, Hifza, Abdul Latif, and the Honourable Member for Mississauga Lakeshore. Terrorism has no religion, knows no faith, understands no conviction. When innocent children are slaughtered, they're not Muslim or Christian or Jewish. They're not black or white. They're children of humanity. Terrorism doesn't know that either. I vow today to stand and to do my part in eradicating terrorism. Mr. Speaker, today is cruel. Tomorrow may be even more cruel, but the day after tomorrow will be beautiful. Thank you.
The honourable member for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in the House to recognize that Mental Health Week is fast approaching. It's actually in early May. Also, in the light of what the events that happened in Attawapiskat and in other communities, I would like to raise awareness about the importance of mental health. 1 in 5 people in Canada live with a mental illness. This year's theme is Get Loud, speak up against the stigma and discrimination surrounding mental illness and using your own voice to raise awareness. Nous connaissons tous que...
We all know someone who's suffering from a mental illness, and by getting loud, we can contribute to reducing the stigmatization surrounding mental illness in Canada.
Organization and to check out the webpage weareallpeers.wordpress.com for a personal story that sheds some light on these issues. Please support your family, your friends, and your community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Eldon, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, this week is National Volunteer Week, a time to celebrate and thank Canada's nearly 13 million volunteers for their selfless work they do to help those around them. Volunteers are the roots of our strong communities, which happens to be this year's theme. Volunteers don't always have the time, but they always have the heart. Nothing is more incredible than to say thank you to all of our incredible citizens who take time out of their day to do something for someone else. There are so many wonderful ways to help each other, and I thank each and every one of you for doing what you do. I am proud to be a volunteer, as should each of you. In my own community, thousands of volunteers take part in activities for our hospital, food banks, teen centres, and many other charitable organizations and churches. As we wrap up National Volunteer Week, I would like to say thank you for all of you do. If you want to touch the past, touch a rock. If you want to touch the present, touch a flower. If you want to touch the future, touch a life. Thank you.
The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On March 27, as families gathered to celebrate Easter in a park in Lahore, Pakistan, 75 people were killed and more than 340 wounded in a barbaric act of terror. As a mother and as an immigrant from Pakistan, my heart goes out to the families of the victims. Wherever you live, you should be free to worship how you choose and gather where you choose. No religion teaches hate and violence. Terrorists cannot justify their barbarity on their distorted view of religion. Terrorists are criminals, nothing more. As we mourn the victims, I find myself wishing there were easy solutions, but there are not. What we can do is ensure we don't allow these cowards to drive wedges of faith, ethnicity, or culture between us. Let us stand together to reject terror and the fear, division, and mistrust it seeks to create. As we honor the victims of Lahore, may that be their legacy. Thank you.
The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, over 400 abandoned vessels pollute Canada's coasts, and Ladysmith has more than anywhere. To make things even worse, the vessel Silver King from my neighbour's riding was towed this week into Ladysmith Harbour in my riding. Now, the last time the government towed an abandoned vessel into Ladysmith, it sat there for 4 years.
Shame.
It never left. And the vessel Vicky Lynn 2 has been rusting in the harbour ever since. 13,000 litres of oil on board risk jobs in shellfish and tourism. A Coast Guard report says it's sure to sink, yet there it sits. The NDP's proposed comprehensive coast-wide solution to this long-standing problem. And I urge the government to immediately remove the Vicky Lynn 2. Do not wait for it to sink to take action. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, allow me to pay tribute to someone in my riding, the Knights of Columbus. This organization hosted an event for me and gave me a program for international and community activities for the Marché aux Puces in my riding. 2 years ago, there was a fire that took out the warehouse right before the flea market, but thanks to the work of so many volunteers and the generosity of people in Quebec City, the Knights of Columbus were able to hold the event, and it was very successful. This group, the Knights of Columbus across the country, does excellent work. It provides generosity to many people. I'd like to invite everyone to today until Sunday to go to Loretteville to participate in the event this year. You'll see all kinds of great things on sale. Good success, enjoy the event, and good luck to the Knights of Columbus across the country.
Member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, once again I stand in this House with a heavy heart. Last Thursday, Karen Costa, age 52, the mother of Western University Jeffrey Costa, age 22, was trying to protect her son when both of them fell into their death. This comes at a time when the Richmond Hill community continues to be in deep mourning from the recent lives lost, yet again, due to mental illness. These families never wavered in their unconditional support for their loved ones who had been struggling with mental health issues. Access to these services is a critical issue, and Canadians need our help now. If we truly are committed to breaking this stigma, we must take mental health services more accessible and affordable for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, on April 28, entertainers and activists will unite at the Richmond Hill Community Centre for Performing Art for the High Notes Gala for Mental Health. I'm proud to support events like this in our community that work to end the stigma, encourage people to get help, and save lives. Thank you.
Question oral questions. The honourable member for Carleton.
According to Finance Canada, 622,000 businesses claimed the small business deduction in 2011, and those businesses paid almost $150 billion in wages that year. The Liberal budget proposes to change the Income Tax Act by raising the small business rate by a half point, a point, and a point and a half over the next 3 respective years. Why did the Liberals break their promise and raise taxes on the small businesses that employ over 6 million Canadians?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary for Small Business.
Calling for the question. But, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at the budget as a whole because we understand and we know that the budget focuses on the middle class, which is the key for small business. Mr. Speaker, we know that middle-class Canadians are those who own and work in small businesses. They're also customers and clients. And we know a strong, vibrant middle class is great for business. And our government is making very important investments which will directly help small business. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
The member for Carleton.
Liberals say they want to transfer wealth from the rich to everyone else, so they should celebrate when philanthropists give millions to food banks or Aboriginal job training programs. Used to be that when generous Canadians sold an investment and gave the proceeds to a charity, the money would be taxed. That did not hurt the philanthropist, who planned to give it all away regardless. It hurt the charity, which lost a large chunk of the donation to the government. Conservatives got rid of this tax on charities. Why did the Liberal budget bring it back?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question. Mr. Speaker, we have a budget that works for the middle class, that works for Canadian families. And I'd just like to remind my colleague opposite, Mr. Speaker, this morning, the Wall Street Journal called us the poster child of the international IMF Global Growth Strategy. The Financial Times called Canada a glimmer of light in the world. The head of the IMF, Madame Lagarde, just praised Canada for an approach that is credible, targeted, and realistic. Mr. Speaker, we will continue on a growth of path. That's what Canadians want, and that's what everyone in the world is celebrating about Canada.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal budget offers hundreds of millions of dollars in new corporate welfare programs to the wealthy and well-connected. The same budget brings back a tax on charitable donations, a policy that gives handouts to the wealthy and taxes the very groups which feed the hungry and house the homeless is the very opposite of social justice. The Liberals promised during the election to be Robin Hood. Why are they acting so much like the Sheriff of Nottingham?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, I would invite him to read the budget in its entirety, because actually this budget is the budget for middle-class Canadians and Canadian families, Mr. Speaker. We are the government who reduced the taxes for the middle class. 9 million Canadians are paying less tax as of January 1st because of this government. We will continue to invest in Canadian families, continue to invest in the Canadian economy, continue to invest in growth. That's what Canadian wants, and you know, Mr. Speaker, that's what we'll do.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, this government has a serious transparency problem. It is hiding tax increases that Canadians will have to pay in order to pay back the out-of-control spending, and the government is refusing to disclose the attendees at the dubious fundraising event by the Minister of Justice. This lack of transparency now involves the Prime Minister, who's refusing to answer questions about his numbered companies. Can the government tell us if it intends to finally start being transparent, or was transparency just an empty campaign promise?
Second immigration.
Mr. Speaker, this government has shown transparency and integrity at a level that we haven't seen for at least 10 years. To give you a specific instance, the Ethics Commissioner indicated that there were no problems with the fundraising event. She repeated that afterward, so I don't have any problem with this, but I don't know why they're asking questions about something that isn't a problem. The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, on September 8th, we read a large percentage of small businesses are actually just ways for wealthier Canadians to save on their taxes. Who said that, Mr. Speaker? It was the current Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, owners of small businesses are honest Canadians who work hard. Everyone on this side of the House knows that. Can the Prime Minister confirm that he was actually talking about his own financial arrangements on September 8th, 2015? When will we get to the truth, Mr. Speaker?
Secretary Parliamentary.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for small business.
And we know they need a robust economy. I'd like to remind my honourable colleague of some of the things that we're doing to make very important investments which are directly helping small business. We're investing over $11 billion in infrastructure spending, $500 million for broadband in rural and remote areas, which is definitely for small business. Another $50 million for the Industrial Research Program, $4 million for the Canadian Technical Accelerator Initiative, and $800 million for innovation. Mr. Speaker, this government is definitely helping small business.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the crisis in Attawapiskat is unfortunately not an isolated event. Young Aboriginal people across the country are living in conditions that no one here would accept for their own children. These young people need resources, but the budget does not earmark any money for this crisis or deal with mental health problems of Indigenous people. Will the minister commit to increasing the budget for mental health and finally help Aboriginal communities? Honourable Minister of Health.
This House has talked before about the fact that there are numerous factors that address mental health in all Canadian communities, including Indigenous communities. Our government is investing deeply in those matters to bring better education to these communities, to address the public health needs in these communities, to make sure that the infrastructure is there. In addition to that, I will be working with my department to find new ways that we can continue to support these communities in mental health care.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Too many Indigenous youth are growing up feeling hopeless instead of hopeful, desperate instead of empowered. Unfortunately, this government offered no new money in the budget for mental health, no new suicide prevention strategy, no new youth programming. And we all know that words alone are not enough to solve this crisis. But there is still time to do the right thing. Will the Liberals add targeted new investments for mental health services in this year's budget?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for the question. I agree with her that it is indeed important to empower young people, to give them reason for hope, and we are working hard along with our colleagues, both our colleagues in provincial governments as well as our leaders in First Nations communities. I have been working, speaking to the community in Attawapiskat, for instance. I spoke to some of the mental health workers there last evening. We will continue to work to find ways to work with our teams to address the mental health needs in these communities.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Finance Minister is meeting with his G20 counterparts today. In the wake of the Panama Papers, the world is demanding action. France has called for a tax havens blacklist, and the European leaders are calling for an international registry to track owners of shell companies. Will the Finance Minister support these specific measures to tackle tax havens, or is he worried it might affect his company's holdings in the Bahamas?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for a question. Mr. Speaker, this is the government which is tackling tax evasion. Mr. Speaker, we're investing $444.4 million to tackle tax evasion. That's going to do three things, Mr. Speaker. Provide the technology to the Canadian Revenue Agency, provide the teams to the Canadian Revenue Agency, provide also the tools that they need to detect, to investigate, and prosecute those who are doing tax evasion. Mr. Speaker, that's the government who is going after tax evasion once for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, here's the situation. We've got a Prime Minister using numbered companies to pay less tax, a finance minister running a company with his name on it, using the Bahamas to make more profit. Regular Canadians have to pay their fair share of taxes, but the wealthy, well, the bar's open for them. This is hypocritical. Does the Prime Minister realize that people are tired of seeing the same well-connected people benefiting from the system? Well, Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for his question. As I've already said, this government is dealing with tax evasion, and we said that even before the election, before the Panama Papers. We said that we were going to put money into that, and we put $440 million in the budget to deal with the problem, to provide for technology and equipment, to detect the problems, to investigate, and to collect the money due. This government is dealing with tax evasion.
For South Surrey, White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberal budget indicated that all public transportation money given to communities will be based on ridership numbers. This means that communities with underdeveloped public transit will receive less funds than those communities with robust developed public infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, it is precisely those communities that don't have adequate public transit and need those funds the most. Will the minister amend the statement in the budget to reflect this reality and support small and rapid-growing communities across Canada?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, we are proud to make historic investments in public transit, including $3.4 billion in the first phase. That money will go where the money is needed to repair, to rehabilitate, and to modernize the existing infrastructures across 100 communities in Canada. For new systems, money is also available for them under the Building Canada, under the new gas tax money to restart and rebuild new systems.
Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public transit is one of the most important infrastructure needs for Canadian communities. Now, last fall, the Liberals made numerous promises to get elected, and we've heard those, and they have delivered on none. The minister talks about fast-tracking public transit projects, but all we're seeing is road repair and data collection. Mr. Speaker, can the minister tell Canadians when they can expect to find the funding for new transit projects?
Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, never in my recent memory we have seen the kind of support our budget has received from mayors across this country, from Federation of Canadian Municipalities, from big city mayors, from provinces and territories, because they understand that we work in partnership, in collaboration, that our investments in transit, in social infrastructure, in green infrastructure are going to make a real difference to build the kind of communities they want in partnership. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, we see the Liberal ministers following the recommendations of their communications gurus day after day, but on the ground, there's nothing happening. Rhetoric aside, the Minister of Infrastructure, who is a former municipal councillor, should know that to get shovels in the ground this summer, municipalities need to act now. All our municipalities have got from this Liberal government is press releases. Time is of the essence. So why isn't the minister moving ahead to create jobs?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my staff and I are in touch with the provinces, territories, and municipalities on a weekly basis to let them know and update on the way we are proceeding in the delivery of infrastructure. Our goal is to invest in this construction season, and we are doing that by fast-tracking the existing Building Canada Fund, as well as making sure that new money gets into the communities in a speedy and a timely fashion, and we are working very closely to deliver on that commitment.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Well, the next construction season isn't 2017, it's 2016. So this is still the same plan, the same rhetoric. There is communications, but there is no action. We know that there's almost nothing to help municipalities with infrastructure in Budget 2016 for this year. This is another broken promise. Can the minister tell us how many projects will be carried out this year, not in 5 years, this year for municipal infrastructure? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Speaker, allow me to share some information with you how much the previous government actually invested in infrastructure for the last 2 years. Out of the $14 billion allocated for municipal infrastructure, only $24 million has been invested. That is not how we will do business. We will invest immediately. That's why we committed to invest $10 billion of new money in this construction season and the next construction season to support municipalities to build
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the Prime Minister's first decisions was to throw $2.65 billion at foreign climate change projects. He then proposed to pay for those with a punishing carbon tax grab on the provinces and territories, something the Premier soundly rejected. To make matters worse, the recent budget announced another $2 billion for a low-carbon slush fund. When will the Prime Minister stop wasting taxpayers' money?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians know that reducing emissions will make our economy more competitive, not less. This is about moving forward in a manner that respects our international obligations to addressing what is a critical international issue, and doing so in a measured manner where we bring along the provinces in a pan-Canadian approach to addressing this critical issue of climate change, creating economic opportunities on a go-forward basis in a manner that will enable us to have a strong economy as we proceed forward. Thank you very much.
Honourable member for Abbotsford.
Well, I thank the member for his excuse, but the Prime Minister continues to break promise after promise on things such as deficits, balanced budgets, small business taxes. So Canadians want to know why he now wants to hammer them with a punishing carbon tax grab. With the government spending billions of dollars on the Prime Minister's vanity projects abroad, and with thousands upon thousands of Canadians losing their jobs, when will the Prime Minister get serious about looking after Canadians?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and we need to grow our economy in a sustainable way. They also know that reducing emissions will make our economy more competitive, not less. I was very pleased this week to hear the words of Pierre Gratton, the President and CEO of the Canadian Mining Association, speaking on behalf of one of Canada's largest industries. He stated that they support carbon pricing, that it represents the most effective and efficient means of driving emissions reductions, and that making real progress in global fight against climate change. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Kimuskenejet, Témiscouata Basque. Mr. Speaker, yesterday in a panel at the University of Ottawa, the Minister of Democratic Reform presented 8 principles for electoral reform. But, surprise, surprise, there was no mention of the need for our system to be more proportional. Both the current and previous governments were elected with less than 40% of the popular vote. Canadians want a system where their votes will really count. Can the minister tell us why proportional representation was left off her list of principles?
Secretary Parliamentary.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister.
On a fait une promesse.
We made a promise, which was to change our system. And we will make sure that the system does change.
Speaker, that the member could be rest assured that the principle that every single vote in Canada is given voice, that we ensure that everybody is enfranchised, is heard. And when the minister spoke yesterday and she's talked about the fundamental principle of ensuring that Canadians are given that opportunity to express their democratic will is one that we will be assured will happen in this process.
Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Well, if the government wants to ensure that, then putting proportionality in as one of the principles would be the best way to do it. As we build this new system, we must enshrine the very best principles and values. Virtually every successful democracy around the world has put proportionality into their system, yet this minister's 8 principles is missing this key element. Canadians want an end to false majorities, where a minority of voters give a party 100% of the power. It's been 6 months, and Liberals have been dragging their heels while experts warn us that we're running out of time. Will, at the very least, will the Liberals give up their false majority on the committee so that we can work together on behalf of all Canadians to come up with a good and proportional system in the next election?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Democratic Institutions.
We've waited since Confederation to evolve our electoral system. And in the last election, we made a commitment to change that system, to make it more representative, to give Canadians a greater voice in our democratic process. And I deeply respect the opinions expressed by the members opposite. I look forward to working with them. I know they're anxious to get to work. But, Mr. Speaker, we've got to ensure that we do this process right. And prejudging that process by saying that we're going to pick a certain system from the onset is the wrong approach. Mr. Speaker, let's work collaboratively. Let's sit down and get this right, engage Canadians, think it through, and do the...
The honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' actions speak louder than words. Last night, the Environment Minister hosted a reception with anti-energy lobby groups Environmental Defence Equiterre and the Pembina Institute. No wonder Canadians don't believe the Liberals' empty rhetoric about supporting energy workers and getting market access. The fact is, the Minister's friends at Environmental Defence believe that the Energy East pipeline must be rejected. Do the Liberals agree?
Yeah. The Honourable Parliament Secretary for the Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I think we've been very clear. Canada is in the process of renewing and revising its environmental assessment processes. We will kick off that process later this year. This is a requirement because the members opposite fundamentally lost the confidence of Canadians in the changes that they made in an omnibus budget bill in 2012, which destroyed the confidence Canadians had in the environmental assessment regime. We plan to restore the confidence of Canadians so that we can more effectively get our resources to market, and that is what we are going to do.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
The Liberals are undermining confidence in Canadian energy. Mr. Speaker, earlier this week, the Environment Minister tweeted a column that said, "The era of fossil fuels must be brought to an end, and quickly." The fact that the Paris scheme may be in force years earlier than expected is, quote, hopefully a rude shock to the fossil fuel industry, which is, quote, cause for considerable excitement. It's certainly shocking to the hundreds of thousands of Canadians who depend on our energy sector, but it explains the delays and extra red tape. Is it the Liberals' real agenda?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, thoughtful Canadians know that focusing on reducing our carbon emissions will actually make our economy stronger, not weaker. We plan to move forward with a robust strategy to address climate change, to foster clean tech development, to foster renewable energy development, and concurrently work to get our resources to market in a framework that allows us to build our economy and at the same time become greener and much more carbon friendly. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
For Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad the member opposite brought up reducing emissions. BC LNG has the potential to provide a positive impact on reducing global pollution. Electricity generated by natural gas has 50% fewer emissions than other forms of generation, making it the much cleaner option. Canada can be part of that positive change if and only if we permit natural gas to be shipped from our shores. Mr. Speaker, when will this government show their support for projects that can actually help reduce emissions like Pacific Northwest LNG?
Good question. Very good. The Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In January, the Government of Canada, as you know, outlined our interim approach of 5 principles that will guide decision-making on all major resource projects under review. Budget 2016 provides $16.5 million over 3 years to the National Energy Board, Natural Resources Canada, and Transport Canada to implement the interim approach. We look forward to working with our partners in order to implement this process. Thank you.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
And yet BC waits and waits and waits. Right. Yesterday I presented a petition signed by hundreds of residents representing thousands of people in northern BC calling on the government to support BC LNG projects. Many of those who signed the petition are struggling to make ends meet. These are real people due to low energy prices which are hurting our local economy. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, BC LNG projects will create thousands of jobs, billions of dollars in tax revenues they need, while also helping reduce emissions. I guess my question seems simple to me. Maybe I'll just say it a word for the Liberals to understand it. When are you going to get out of the way and allow these important projects to move forward?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I find it interesting that the other day the member opposite from Grand Prairie Mackenzie stated that we should approve a project that actually hasn't even applied yet. appreciates and sympathizes with the hardships families and communities are experiencing in this resource downturn. We are looking forward to working with our partners, including the province of BC, to help get our resources to market in a sustainable way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the government representative in the Senate asked for a supplementary budget of $800,000 for his own office. We're therefore talking about a $1 million budget in total, no less. He wants to be able to hire 9 more employees to manage the independent senators. He even wants to appoint a whip. It seems like there's something wrong with this. The Prime Minister keeps saying that there are no more Liberal senators in the Senate, only senators who are Liberal. Can the government stop hoodwinking Canadians with this so-called Senate reform?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's important for us to recognize that earlier this week, 7 extremely impressive individuals took their seat in the Senate and as independent senators. Peter Hawley, a long-time and highly respected public servant, is named the government representative in the Senate. I am confident in his abilities to bring senators together to study, adopt, and when required, improve government legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina Luban.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday news broke that the government's representative in the Senate demanded nearly $1 million to run his office. Talk about entitlement. Liberals are already spending $1 million a year on the advisory board that recommended him. And now he wants another $1 million to manage supposedly independent senators on behalf of the Liberal government. Will the government turn down his outrageous request for yet more money spent on this outdated and unnecessary institution?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am sure that the member is aware that the Senate in itself sets its budget, and we need to be able to respect that fact. What I can assure the member is that there is a sense of accountability and transparency there, and I would remind the member that it was his party and his caucus that resisted at all costs proactive disclosure, and if it wasn't for the current Prime Minister, we still wouldn't have proactive disclosure in the New Democratic caucus, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe.
Mr. Speaker, last month, the Minister for the Status of Women led the Canadian delegation during the 60th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Can the Parliamentary Secretary for the Status of Women inform this House of the achievements of this session? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. It was an honour for me to be part of the Canadian delegation to the United Nations Commission. I was proud to have the opportunity to work with other nations in order to give women and girls tools around the world to achieve their full potential. I'm particularly proud that Canada was elected to be a member of the Commission, which will allow Canada to participate more vigorously in the defense and promotion of women's and girls' rights around the world.
Mr. Speaker, by international standards, Canada has fewer doctors specializing in palliative care than countries such as the U.S. or Australia. Out of 77,000 physicians in Canada, a recent survey identified only 51 palliative care specialists, as well as 123 family physicians whose practices focus on palliative care. Where is the evidence that the Liberals have any concrete plan to address this crucial issue of palliative care? Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member opposite for his question and for his advocacy on behalf of the matter of palliative care. Yesterday in this House, we were pleased to present a new legislation which will address the needs of Canadians at the end of their lives. We acknowledged in our communications yesterday that Canada has a long way to go in making sure that all Canadians have access to high-quality care at the end of life, including palliative care. I am determined to work with my colleagues in the provinces and territories. We are determined to make investments necessary to make sure that all Canadians have access to the care that they need at the end of their lives.
Mr. Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in reference to the Supreme Court of Canada decision yesterday, our Health Minister stated that the Liberals need to confront the fact that access to high-quality palliative care is available in a very patchy manner across the country. While the Liberals keep talking about their commitment to palliative care,
Their free spending budget doesn't earmark one single dollar for it.
Right.
Why do the Liberals continue to break their promises by saying one thing and then doing another?
Exactly. Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, it has been clear since the time that we campaigned and from the beginning of the time that we formed government that we are committed to making sure that Canadians have access to the health care services they need. We are investing in home care. We have committed to investing $3 billion in home care, and I have spoken with my colleagues in the provinces and territories to make sure that palliative care is part of that package. We will make sure that Canadians have access to the palliative care they need. We will make sure it is accessible across this country. I am determined to do so.
Well, member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the Daniels decision by the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that 600,000 Métis and non-status Indians are under federal jurisdiction. This decision will create profound fiscal obligations, and any prudent government would have analyzed the full implications. So will the minister share with Canadians what they project the cost of this decision will be?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in this new chapter of relations between Canada and our Indigenous people, we certainly welcome the ruling and the clarity that this ruling gives. We support and respect all Indigenous people in this country, Mr. Speaker, including First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. Mr. Speaker, this will be another chapter in which we will be able to lift up Indigenous people throughout this country and maintain good on our commitment as a Liberal government in Canada.
Honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, not only will there be significant costs from the decision, there will be increased complexity in the development of our natural resources. Once again, any prudent government would have anticipated the implications of the decision. So will the minister explain how this will impact our critical natural resource development and the processes?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but I reject the concept that acknowledging Indigenous people and clarifying their rights within our country is an impediment to development of any resources.
Order. The Honourable Parliament Secretary.
In fact, Mr. Speaker, if we're ever to move away from the colonialism that we have experienced over the many years in this country in dealing with Indigenous governments and people, we have to start thinking differently to get a different result. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni. Order.
Mr. Speaker, Vancouver Islanders are happy to see the government listen to the NDP calls to remove a sinking 100-foot derelict tug from a sensitive area in my riding. The problem is that there's still no plan to deal with more than 400 other abandoned vessels. These pose a threat not only to the environment but also to the economy of coastal communities like mine. A boat-by-boat approach simply won't cut it. Yep. When will this government present a national strategy to deal with abandoned and derelict vessels?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To the honourable member for his question. We want to make sure that everybody realizes that Transport Canada is working with its partners to develop options to address the issue of abandoned vessels and wrecks that can pose environmental and safety risks and cause local economic harm, for example, loss of revenue of reduced tourism. We're on top of it. We're taking care of it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, we need a national plan, not a ship-by-ship approach, not more talking. While the sinking tug my colleague referred to was removed, it was towed to Ladysmith Harbour along dozens of other derelict vessels. So last year, NDP MP Jean Crowder introduced the kind of comprehensive coastwide solution this country needs, and last year the Liberal Party supported it, including the Prime Minister. So why the delay? Will the government adopt our bill and finally deal with abandoned vessels?
Parliament Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just to reiterate, Transport Canada continues the process. We've consulted on a possible regime to address the hazardous wrecks, and we are incorporating feedback into development of a comprehensive approach, and we would not want nothing less. The costs of removing these vessels can be high and often beyond the capacity of local communities and marinas. So we realize that this is an issue, and we are making sure that we address it as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal budget is almost completely silent on interprovincial trade. Now, interprovincial trade represents about 20% of our GDP, a great chance for us to grow our economy. An agreement on internal trade was supposed to be announced at the end of March, but here we are weeks later, and still the government is radio silent. The minister claims that they're close to a new deal, but we don't know exactly when. Can the minister please advise this place as to when we can expect a new agreement on internal trade?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Science and Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question. As he knows, as he was at the committee yesterday, at the Industry Committee, the minister is continuing his discussions with the provinces on working on an agreement on internal trade. We know it's important. We know it would be an advantage to Canada to create greater growth, better productivity, to sharing goods and services across our provinces, our provincial and territorial borders. We're working very hard on the issue. As you know, there are many parties to this deal, and therefore the negotiations get a little complex, Mr. Speaker, but I'm glad to hear that the minister, the honourable member rather, and his party would be supportive of any agreement on internal trade.
Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that they're working hard. But at the same token, the Canadians are being left without. We are seeing foreign direct investment at record paces out of this country. That means that it's going to be up to domestic producers to scale up. This is the perfect opportunity, a debt-free way for us to grow our economy. What is the holdup? Why is this government continuing to stall on something that can be very good for our economy?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Science and Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to say after October 19th, this top-down approach to command and order approach to negotiating is over. This is a government that believes in working in partnership with our partners, and to have an agreement on internal trade between the provinces and territories requires discussion in good faith, Mr. Speaker. That's what's happening. This is what this government is going to deliver, and we're looking forward to the support of all members for an agreement on internal trade. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, in 1994, the government put in place a specialized labelling exemption that allows wine bottled in Canada but made from non-Canadian grapes to be labelled as cellared in Canada. This was to be an interim measure while our Canadian industry took root, but 22 years later, our industry is thriving and making international award-winning wine. The cellared in Canada designation devalues the Canadian wine brand and is misleading for consumers. So, Mr. Speaker, will the government commit to reviewing this decades-old interim measure and ensure truth in labelling for Canadian wines?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Science and Innovation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the honourable member for this question. This is an issue which we're taking a look at, Mr. Speaker, and that I would have to take the question under advisement and to consult with our officials and to come back. I'll be happy to speak with the member at any time outside of this House.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, as you may know, the town of Newmarket recently proclaimed National Health and Fitness Day to be held on the first Saturday of every June, this year, June 4th. This initiative is a growing recognition to enhance the health and fitness of constituents and all Canadians. Many local councils across Canada have taken part, all with the goal of raising awareness to celebrate and promote the importance of health. Physical activity and healthy eating go hand in hand. Will the Minister of Health please tell me what the Government of Canada is doing to promote healthy lifestyles across Canada? Thank you.
Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, as a family doctor, a parent, and the Minister of Health, I know that healthy lifestyles are a key to a high quality of life. That's why our government is committed to restricting commercial marketing of unhealthy food and beverages to children, regulations to eliminate trans fats, and to reduce salt in processed foods, all while improving food labels to support Canadians in making healthy choices. In the months ahead, I look forward to working with the provinces and territories and all members of this House, including my neighbour and honourable colleague from Newmarket Aurora, to build a better and healthier Canada.
The honourable member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister claimed last night that her consultations with Canadians have revealed 8 consensus principles to guide electoral reform. And we've seen no evidence of these supposed consultations, so it would be awfully nice if she could share the process, what it's been, if indeed one exists at all. One piece of public consultation that we have seen is the poll showing that by a 4-to-1 margin, Canadians demand a referendum on any voting change. Now, whereas 17%, only 17% think it's okay for the Liberals to impose a new voting system without a referendum. Therefore, will the Liberals stop posturing and hold a referendum on what?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Let's start with principles. One of the principles is the so-called Fair Elections Act needs to be amended. One of the principles is that every Canadian be empowered and given the opportunity to vote. That the kind of voter suppression that we saw and the sort of anti-democratic measures that were brought about needs to be changed. In the last election, Canadians spoke very clearly for that change. And we're at the beginning of the consultation process. And I am excited that the member is so anxious to begin those public consultations. The minister has been talking with stakeholders. We've met a number of times with the critic himself. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, for that to be very robust, pan-Canadian. It's coming soon.
The honourable member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, people in my riding know the Immigration Minister is committed to cut processing time for spousal sponsorship and family reunification. Our campaign commitment to eliminate the 2 years requirement for spouses to become permanent residents is another positive step to continue building on our inclusive society. Can the Minister of Immigration inform this House on the work he is doing to help families like those in my riding who agree that we should do away with the 2 years waiting period?
Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
I thank the honourable member for her question, and I totally agree we will get rid of this 2-year waiting period. When we were in opposition, expert groups made it abundantly clear that this system gave rise to unacceptable domestic abuse, and for that reason we committed to get rid of it. We will get rid of it in coming months, and at the same time we will introduce major new initiatives to reduce processing times for spouses who now have to wait up to 2 years or more, which is totally unacceptable.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Mr. Speaker, more than 200 Canadians die each year waiting for an organ transplant. While 90% of Canadians support organ and tissue donation, less than 25% have made plans to donate. Our organ donation rate is among the world's worst, yet one donor can save up to 8 lives. Can the Minister of Health assure this House that her government will support my bill, C-223, to establish a Canadian organ donor registry?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and for his advocacy on behalf of the important matter of organ donation and the development of a pan-Canadian organ donation registry. I'm pleased to report to him that this is a matter that I have discussed with my colleagues at the provinces and territories who, as he knows, play the role of the delivery of healthcare services, including the matter of organ donation. I have also had the privilege of meeting with Canadian Blood Services and AMA Quebec. I am very impressed with the work that Canadian Blood Services and AMA Quebec are doing on this matter. There is, in fact, tremendous amount of work being done on the matter of a national organ donation registry, and I would be pleased to discuss this matter further with my colleague in the future.
The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, last week we learned that in Quebec the unemployment rate for new immigrants who only speak French is 40% higher than those who only speak English. And during this time, the federal government is promoting an Anglophone Quebec. by funding those services in Quebec and is preventing the francization of businesses under federal jurisdiction. Does the Minister for Official Languages realize that the language that's threatened in Quebec and in Canada is French, and that its policy on official languages is a factor in the anglicization of Quebec? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for his question. This government is passionate about the two official languages in French inside Quebec and across the Canada, and French in Quebec. It includes the whole process of immigration, access to jobs, federal and provincial rather. We are fighting for all of these issues, and we'll continue to do so. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, the law requires that Air Canada carry out all maintenance of its planes at home. We're talking about 2,600 jobs and dozens of suppliers of parts. But the Relocation of Air Canada Act is asking them to do very little here. 2 workers and an oil change, and that's great. But it's the entire aerospace sector that is being destructured. Can the minister repeat here in this House what he said to me at the briefing when the bill was tabled? That is, that he did not even assess the impacts on the Montreal aeronautical industry before drafting this disgraceful law. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for that question. The Air Canada Public Participation Act is under debate today in the House, and I'm grateful to the honourable member for bringing that up. We will be debating it throughout the day, and I hope that he will stand up and talk about his concerns with the Act. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the Carter decision obliged the federal government to overhaul the criminal code because it contravenes Section 7 of the Charter. The bill introduces some conceptual confusion in terms of the eligibility, which this morning the Minister of Health was told she has the obligation to be clear. My question is simple. If, on the basis of the concept of a natural death that is reasonably foreseeable, Kay Carter would have been eligible for physician-assisted dying without having had to go through a hunger strike.
Secretary of Parliament.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The short answer is yes. For all Canadians, physician-assisted dying is a difficult and extremely personal decision that is tied to their life experience and their personal beliefs. For some, physician-assisted dying will be clearer and easier. For others, this bill won't go far enough. We are of the opinion that this bill is the best possible way to guarantee that the rights of dying patients will be respected and that vulnerable people will be protected.
And this will conclude question period for today. The Honourable Member for Perth Wellington on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If one were to review the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, second edition, O'Brien and Bosk, you will find an interesting discussion throughout Chapter 24 on the importance of the parliamentary record. Specifically, 1209 to 1210 talks about the importance of the corrections to the official record. So in an effort to ensure that the record reflects that the Conservative government left a $4.3 billion surplus, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to table January's fiscal monitor.
Does the Honourable Member for Perth Wellington have the unanimous consent of the House to propose this motion? I'm not seeing any consent there. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents. Tabling of documents. Tabling of documents. The Honourable